how I lost 30 pounds and never gained it back. Okay, so before I dive deep into that, this class is not a joke, okay? It looks a little easier than it actually is in person, but it will have you so sore. Oh my gosh. And what I've been doing is really trying to push myself. So I usually use the lighter weights because, it's a HIIT cardio class, but I've been personally slowing down so I can go a little bit deeper, and then so I can go a little bit heavier. And we wear the resistance band, which literally just takes it to the next level. But how I lost 30 pounds and never gained it back is there's a couple different things that I did that are kind of bizarre, I guess you could say, but they really did work for me. So when I was in my 20s, I gained 30 pounds and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not going out like that. And most people would have said, well, it's just part of your genes. And the truth and reality is that most of the women in my family are technically in the obese category. So I was like, okay, is this what really happens? Like, is this it? And it really wasn't. It just is the fact that most of the time, most people will end up continuing the same habits as their parents, their grandparents, their uncles, their aunts, right? So it kind of just, that's how it was for me. And this is the thing, I actually thought I was going to skip the gaining weight as you age, because most of the people that I went to college with, like they had all gained the freshman 15, right? And I never gained that. So I was like, well, maybe I'm just someone that's going to naturally be like fit and all that. Nope. I got a reality check very quickly. It just caught up to me in my later 20s instead of in my early 20s. So what I ended up doing was, number one, I got in front of my stress. Like, hands down, if I hadn't gotten in front of my stress, I would probably be 50 pounds overweight by this age that I am now. So cortisol, we all hear about cortisol all the time. It's so oversaturated with all of the information out there, but it's just the truth. Like, if you are stressed, and most of us are, as we are coming into adulthood, we're learning about bills, we're learning about debt, we're learning about life's hard challenges. Maybe there is a grandparent that might have passed away by that time, right? There might have been, just something just really traumatic, has happened. And it's just a lot. There's a lot of adjusting happening. You're out of college, you're going into your career. This was back then. Now, I don't even know. Is it even common for people to automatically go to college? I know people still go to college, but is it like that's just what you do? I feel like it's kind of 50-50 now. But anyways, that's a whole nother video. So I got in front of my stress. I was working at a job that I absolutely did not like at all. And there was aspects that I liked that kept me there for as long as I was there. But overall, it was definitely not anywhere that I ever wanted to end up. And it was really reflecting in the way that I was choosing to, make decisions when it came to my health. I was eating super late at night. I was stress eating. I was not getting that much sleep during that time because I had to commute an hour and a half to 2 hours each way. So on the way to work and then coming home from work. So I was in the car 3.5 to 4 hours a day. It just was too much on my body. And, just sitting in bumper to bumper LA traffic, it just took over. Plus, I would eat breakfast and dinner a lot in the car. And if I was just too tired, I wouldn't prepare my food. And in my 20s, I was just like on the go. So that really caught up with me. And then again, just being at that job, and it instead of complaining about it with my roommate at the time, I would just, cope with food. And I didn't think I was coping with food because it just was like, I'm just eating, right? But when I look back now, I was eating way more sugar than I ever had in my life. Like, I loved candy growing up, right? Like every other kid does, but I wasn't overindulging on candy. I didn't beg for candy. I didn't eat a lot of donuts and cookies and all that when I, being in elementary school, junior high, and high school, because it just wasn't accessible. Like, my mom wasn't buying me and my brother a ton of candy. And then when I would visit my dad's house, it was like the same thing. It was kind of like a treat. And so when I got to college, I wasn't huge on sweets either for some reason. So I noticed that, wow, like I do eat a lot of pastries now, and a lot of bread, and a lot of, pasta and just like different things like that I didn't really grow up eating a ton of, right? I had access to all that stuff, but now I was having it in abundance, like 4, 5, 6 times a week. So I was pretty much addicted to sugar and didn't really know that that's pretty much what it was. And I think that's why unfortunately, a lot of Americans end up, this is just my opinion. Again, this is not fact. This is just a complete disclaimer. I'm not a certified nutritionist or anything like that. I'm just a woman that has gone through the journey of trying to lose weight, trying to stay healthy, keeping up with my mind, body, and soul, right? And just always trying to get better and better. That's why I call my page Embody Pursuit, because we're always embodying that next level. We are in pursuit, literally in pursuit. So when we're in pursuit of something, it's like we are serious. And embodying means to take an idea, take something from your mind and actually put it into the physical, bring it into the physical. Okay. So that's just what I've been trying to do. And so when I look back at that time, I'm like, wow, I was actually addicted to sugar. And most Americans end up that way because it's just it's accessible. Everything's surrounded around donuts in the morning. Pastries, everyone stops at Starbucks, gets a 600 calorie, 700 calorie drink. Like, it's just part of the culture. And even going to Starbucks twice a day, like, it's just part of American normal 9 to 5 type of lifestyle. Like, you have your hit of caffeine in the morning and then you have your hit of caffeine again. And then of course we want it to be super tasty, right? So, again, that's what happened. So sleep had to get better. I needed to start drinking more water. I needed to lay off the coffee. I started getting really in front of my portion control as well. I was eating way too big of portions. I wasn't moving my body enough to keep up with the portions that I was eating. Because again, I was coping with stress from work. I, had to cut back on social life. It just was what it was. I had to say no here and there. And that was really at that time. Now I'm like, now it's like, it's a different story now. But in my 20s, that was hard for me because I enjoyed spending time with friends and going out and things like that. So, but I was like, I really have to get in front of this. So I would, decline going out so I can actually catch up on sleep on the weekends. I declined going to happy hours and things like that because really all the happy hours were 80 to 90% of the time, they were just like trauma bonding sessions about how much we all hated our job. And I think a lot of us do that as well. We kind of just keep feeding the fire of like just the complaining of dead end jobs, So I was doing that and I had to stop doing that because I was like, okay, this is not good for my mental health. This is not good for my physical health. And I just need to get in front of it. I had always been pretty naturally fit because I was a dancer. When I was done with college, I stopped being on a dance team, which I don't know why I stopped. Well, actually, I do know why. I don't know why I didn't continue despite being encouraged to stop, which is a whole nother video for another time. And then I didn't know how to work out at the gym because I didn't have to. I was on a professional dance team. We had practice 4 times a week, and then we would have games that we had to perform at. And we would be performing for 3 hours, and I would be standing and performing for 3 hours. So I really wish I had footage from that time, by the way. That was before video was on camera. Actually, there was a little bit of video, but it was super fuzzy. It was on like those flip phones. Anyways, because I would show you guys what I mean. So when I stopped, it was like I went from this really active college young woman to working a 9 to 5, having to commute, having all these responsibilities, and which is fine. It's part of growing up, but it affected me physically. It affected me really adjusting to how to cope with stress and get mature and wise and have emotional intelligence and, not cope with things like that. And to be all the way honest, I thought because I wasn't abusing alcohol, I wasn't abusing any drugs. I was like, oh, I'm good. But I was actually just doing it the worst way, in my opinion, because it's legal and it's encouraged, which is just the overconsumption of sugar. And sugar is in so many different things that we don't realize, or maybe we do know, but because it's not like directly sugar, it's just, we're like, it's fine. Like different kinds of breads, it hits the body, it processes it like sugar. Different pastas, when it hits the body, it's processing it like a sugar. Like, of course, an actual candy, actual pastries. And I'm just like, I feel like it's sad because it seems like this is just the normal American way of eating, and this is what we do. But then internally, because I'll talk to a lot of women that are really going through it, and they feel like it's almost like we've been conditioned to feel like if we don't have a lot of access to sugar, that we're not living, that we're actually doing something detrimental, that we're actually being too strict, that we're actually not being a part of our community, right? Like by saying no to sugar, no to tons of donuts and things like that. And it's really the opposite. We're actually not living because we're actually eating things that are processed and dead. Actually living and eating is eating whole foods, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, legumes. If you eat meat, I don't eat meat, but even if you eat meat, fresh meats, right? Fresh fish, really having a high standard with the type of meat and fish and, beef that you're eating, right? So, fried food, bad seed oils, sugar, it's a part of the normal all day, everyday lifestyle. And then that food is the most easily accessible too, right? So every fast food has a ton of fried stuff or, overly processed stuff. And you really have to go out of your way to, like, if you're eating on the go, right? Or you have to make time to make something at home. And then, what happens is I've even gone through the journey of making things at home. During that time, I was like, okay, let me just try this. And I would just be so stressed out that my body would be repelled by eating the healthier option during that time when I was working at my ex job, I guess you could say, my ex career. And I would just go to the food court and order what I really wanted, right? But what I was really doing was I was needing a dopamine hit. And the only way to really satisfy that dopamine hit was not going to be from the chicken salad, because at the time in my 20s, I did eat meat. So it wasn't going to be from the chicken salad I made. It was going to be from, the pasta in the food court at the mall. Or it would be, from some big greasy sandwich or pizza or French fries. I used to love the French fries from McDonald's and honey mustard. Like I would get a large. You guys, this was so bad. I would get a large and then get the honey mustard. And then because I would be in 2-hour traffic in LA, I would get it right at the beginning of my drive, right? Like before I got on the road, I would get it at the beginning. And then by the end of the 2 hours, I would get like another small one, like right before I went home. Like it was that bad because I was just so fatigued and just like craving the sugar. And it was just bad. And at the time I was like, this is cool. Like this is normal. This is fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. But when I look back, I'm like, I really had an addiction, and I really wish, and I guess they have this community where it's Overeaters Anonymous, which I just found out from one of my amazing subscribers. And, she was saying that there's, people that gather together and talk about these things. So I actually just subscribed to a channel because I want to learn. I did not know about that at the time, that there was any community like that. But I was actually happy to hear that because it really is on the level of it's an issue. It's a serious issue that needs to be, I think, highlighted a lot more. So I gained 30 pounds very quickly in my late 20s. It was like I went from like a really like nice, lean, natural body to like just 30 pounds heavier within it just felt like a short period. It felt like overnight to me, but it realistically probably was over the course of a year, which is still a lot of weight to gain. So I just looked at myself one day in the mirror and I was just like, I don't even know who this person is. And here's the kicker. most people were like, oh, you look fine. So I think some people like secretly liked that I gained weight and I didn't have like a lean, fit dancer body anymore. So there's that. Number two, people were like, I like your body like that, because they were naturally into like a more of a voluptuous look. So I was really, really like, I was like 120 something pounds. So then when I gained the weight, I ended up, maybe it was like 130, something like that. And I ended up being in the 160s. So for my height at 5'7", it distributed fine. So I think that's why I didn't even really notice it, because it was like all going to my thighs and my glutes and like kind of in my face and kind of like a little bit on my arms, but barely, and like a little bit in my stomach. But it was mostly my thighs and my glutes. So it wasn't like this drastic body recomposition look. Like in my eyes it was, but like on the outside, it probably just looked like I was getting thicker, right? So I ended up looking in the mirror one day and I was just like, I don't even know who I'm looking at. Like this, I don't feel good. I feel like I don't feel agile in my body. Like I feel heavy. I feel like I'm walking through mud all the time, right? I felt just extremely, just like not myself. I really don't know how else to explain it or articulate it. I felt like people were like, my confidence went down. I felt like people at work were staring at me. And unfortunately, the job that I had, it was based on looks. Like you wouldn't get fired if you gained weight, but like you definitely, sadly, that's why this particular company got sued all the time. But you definitely couldn't get hired, right? And then when you got hired, but then you gained weight over time, it was just kind of like you could feel that they were like, yeah, we're not going to promote them. It was really disgusting. That's why, part of the reason why I quit that job. So that's again, I go really deep into that journey in other videos of mine. If you scroll further down my page, I talk more in depth about that. So I just was like, people are looking at me different. Like it just was, I was looking at myself different. I was just like, is obesity a gene? Like it's just part of my DNA, like what's happening? So I started making the changes, mostly with my stress. I actually quit my job. And a big chunk of it did have to do with stress. And I just didn't like it anymore. So when I quit, automatically that like relieved the reasons why I was using sugar as like a coping mechanism. But prior to me quitting, on the way out, I did make it a point to really go above and beyond, to sleep a little bit better, have green juices, not have French fries and stuff like that after work. Like I started making those little changes, but when I quit, I was able to really go hard and drastically just change my habits. And I lost 30 pounds in 6 months. I went really, really hard. And I'll list off all the stuff. If you want to actually know what I did before I post the next video, I have an ebook guide on how I lost 30 pounds and never gained it back. So I do have that pinned in the comments, and I'll also have it in the description box. But I literally, I did intermittent fasting. I would just have protein and vegetables. I, always had a gym membership, but I wouldn't use it as much. So I actually started going to the gym. It was just a lot. There was a lot of things that I did, and it paid off. And now 9 years later, I've never gained 30 pounds back ever. I might have gained like maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. And some of it was on purpose actually to gain muscle. So I have that journey in other videos if you look at my playlists. But now, as you see, this is me, this is me just maintaining what I started 9 years ago. And I'm still not perfect at it, but the point is not to stop. And this is me practicing moving my body. And that's how we should think about it. It's forever going to be practice in embodying that next level.